Hello to all, and welcome to Spanglish World Networks on Single TV Channel 250. This is Alejandro Bratti from Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business. Please remember to download both the Single TV app of the respective app stores and on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free and is available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Roku, and all smart TVs. For me today is a very special day because I have a very good friend that I knew for almost a year. We were working together, Joe. So it was really amazing. And for me, it's an honor to have you here with us in the program. Believe in yourself, believe in your business. How are you, Joe, today?
I'm doing great, and the honor's mine. The pleasure is mine. You've always just dove right into things, and it's who you are, and added so much value as we've got to work together. So I love that we get this chance to talk now.
So everyone, Joe was one of my mentors, one of my coaches in the past, and I was learning so much from him. A lot of the things that I am doing comes from that work that we did together. So I want to start with being thankful about that, Joe, for your all your wisdom and everything that you share with me. That was really something that I know that helped me a lot, me and my family in the process. So I want to use this space to give you thank you. And I also want to ask you, what are you doing? What are all the projects that you are right now working right now? And then we're going to start to go back in your life and how everything started to be created as you're doing that.
Yeah, well, so right now, I before I was doing mostly business coaching, and then got involved, was doing the family stuff, just kind of fit into that. And what I've realized is that when people get their families right first, then the business stuff follows. Because when you have your foundation, everything else follows. So lately, I've been really focused in on helping people build stronger families, especially in the changing world, changing society we have. There's a lot that's going on. And so people are struggling to figure out, well, okay, what are my family values? What do I want to live by? How do I want to raise my kids? So really focused on coaching and helping parents with that. I've got a membership that I do, but I think the most fun thing that I do, apart from talking with you and doing things like this, is my YouTube channel. And I love being able to post videos on there. And so that's exciting, and still doing one-on-one coaching, but I love the impact of getting to focus on families and help with families.
I love that. And maybe before we start to go inside of your story, we can, like, maybe you can help us understand, like, how this parenting and family coaching. This week, I also heard a person that was saying, "I am a family success coach." I love the name. Like, it's like awesome. But I was like, okay, but tell me a little bit more. What is really family success coach, and how that relates even with business? Because you are talking about, like, okay, these families, if there is a foundation that is not working well, that will affect your business. So, what are the things that you have learned until now that, like, there is a correlation, or how it works between one and the other, and that's why we
Yeah.
have to work back.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that's interesting is, so I have a master's in business. I've got an MBA, focused on strategic development. And between my bachelor's degree and getting my master's, that's 6 years of study that I did, and however many hundreds of thousands of dollars of awesome school debt that we do, right? Um, so I spent 6 years studying that. I got into an industry, helped build a business from the ground up it was doing 8 figures a year before I orchestrated my exit. But I was there for a decade that I spent learning the industry, learning business, getting better at it, understanding clients. But for some reason, I thought when I got married, I would just automatically know, right? Like, we're supposed to be married and have families and kids, and you just know, right? But I didn't know anything. And everything I thought I knew, like, I thought I was awesome at communicating, Alejandro. I was like, oh, I know how to communicate. I can talk with people. And then I get married, and I'm sure while I was dating, we talked well, but now, married, and it's like, I don't know how to talk. I don't know what's going on. And what I realized is that it's so easy for us as entrepreneurs in the business world, we'll put in time and effort into studying and understanding business, but then we don't make those the same investments in our home and with our family. And so couples struggle to communicate. Families, they just exist with no real aim or purpose except maybe the next vacation or when they get to retire. Um, Parents talk about, oh, well, they're just teenagers. It's just a phase. Or don't expect to get along with your kids when they're this age. Or, oh my goodness, the tantrums. Well, but why? Why does it have to be that way? And most
Mm,
of what I've discovered is that the only reason people walk a certain path is because they don't know there's a better way to do it. And so
mm,
being a family success coach, or with what I focus on families and really helping people to do, is to provide intentional steps, specific actions, a clear roadmap to where I can decide what it is that I actually want to have with my family. And now we're going to carve out a path to achieve that both with my family. And when that's the focus, then you realize, okay, well, if I want more flexibility to go do things with my family, then that means I need to have this kind of job or I need to build this kind of business. And so we're able to start integrating those pieces. So, what I do in my coaching is I help translate what it is that you already know. I mean, Alejandro, you're a genius. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. And that's not just fluff, y'all. Like, he really is. Um, but there's in a lot of our coaching, it's things that you understood on the business side, or that uh, the courage you showed when you went to Spain and started going to school, and all the different things that you've done. I can take the things that you've learned from there and I can say, okay, that principle, let's translate that to your family. Let's translate that to how you are with your wife. And then the light bulbs go off and, oh, well, that makes sense. And now we're communicating better and now we're moving forward and now things get exciting. And
mm.
so I love it. That's why I love doing things with family.
So I believe we are going to do a mix of things here because I trust you and that I know that this is going to be very fun. But first, let's start with your story, understanding a little bit, like even when you were a kid and you had your family, and like maybe things that you started to, what is the belief that you started to develop at that moment when you, and I don't want to put like the date exactly, but maybe a couple of stories that you can tell us about you when you were a son and learning about all this process, and then we move to, okay, you get married and then you have families. So how was that process of how this belief started to be created in you to know that you can help people in this area now?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of my childhood that I don't remember. And a lot of things that, people talk about, oh, when I was 3 and this happened. And when I was 7, this, like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I don't remember. I have a good family. I had 3 older sisters, 1 younger brother. Um, my mom was mostly at home. She did some work from home businesses. My dad, he had one of the second largest accounting firm in the state of Arizona, in the US. And Arizona, there's roughly in the Phoenix area right now, there's over 4 million people. So have that in mind. He had the second biggest accounting firm, but he was transitioning to do more entrepreneurial work. And so there was just this. I mean, we went to church on Sunday and we believed in God and we read scriptures as a family and we said prayers as a family, but there wasn't a lot of communication that went on.
Mm,
And there
mm,
wasn't a lot. It was, mom was home to raise me, to raise the kids, and dad went and he worked and he brought home the bacon. And if there was something real serious that happened, you just wait till dad gets home. And so he was also the disciplinarian. And so there were these stories, these ideas of the different roles that my parents would play that I took on as I grew up. Now, the thing that's interesting here is that we create stories based on our experiences. My mom never said, well, my role is to raise you and your dad's role is to make money. They never said that. But as I experienced life, I created these interpretations, I created these definitions, and that began to define how I saw parenting, how I saw what marriage and relationships and families would look like.
Mm.
And we do that all the time as kids. I've always struggled with this thought that it's like, oh, well, Alejandro, tell me about what happened with your dad. And oh, that was so bad that your dad, shame on your dad. Well, look, my dad made mistakes, but he did his best. And so I think anytime when we look back at our youth, if we seek to blame somebody, then now don't get me wrong, there's some terrible, horrific things that happen and people should be blamed. But in general, most of what comes along are the stories we create. So an example, there was one time we were having a party. We had some family and friends over, and my brother had just gotten this Nerf gun. Now at this time, then it was this long pink tube, and it had like this bright blue triangle handle, and it shot a single Nerf ball. I mean, now, man, you can get these battery operated Nerf guns and backpacks and whatever, but this was the single shot, right? And my dad had warned us not to shoot each other. Like he'd actually just come said, my brother was complaining. He comes in, he's like, don't shoot each other and you better not shoot him in the face. So as a 10-year-old, what did I do? I shot my brother in the face and it bounces off his forehead. And at first my brother looked surprised, right? Like, oh, can't believe you did that. And then he gets this sneer on his face like, oh, you're in for it now. And then he just screams. And I hear this, Joseph. And my dad's yelling. So I bolt for my bedroom. Okay. I bolt for my bedroom. And in my little 10-year-old mind, I think if I can get on the top bunk, then I can get away from my dad and I'll be safe. Well, my dad's 6 foot. And so it really wasn't an issue. But he gets in, then he grabs my ankle and pulls me down. And I go boom, 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 down the ladder to the bunk bed. And I try to tell my dad, no, he was fine. It didn't hurt. But nothing I said mattered. Okay. It didn't matter that I got hurt being pulled down the ladder. It didn't matter that my brother was lying or exaggerating. It didn't matter what I had to say or what story I had. Okay. And so as a 10-year-old, I created these stories of whether or not I get to have a voice, whether or not the truth matters,
Wow.
where I fit in my family and how important I am or I'm not. Right. So I create all these stories. And those stories then impacted my marriage and impacted how I interacted in high school, in friendships and dating, interacted how I approached my school studies, how I stood up for myself with teachers that were trying to get me to write papers on things I didn't believe in. And it impacted my marriage and my relationship with my wife and how I defined being a provider, how I defined being a dad. And it got to the point where I had a choice. I either had to choose to write my own stories of who I wanted to be as a husband and a dad, or I had to rely on stories I created when I was 10 years old, when I was 7 years old, when I was 13 years old. Okay. And so I think it's the same question for each of us. Do we want to live our lives based on the stories we choose today and how we want to live today, or how we saw life when we were 7, 10, 13, and younger? And I think when
Mm.
we live in those stories of the past, and man, Alejandro, I did the best I could with that story as a 10-year-old. I didn't know, and now I can look back and say, hey, what my dad did wasn't right.
And
You know,
I want to enter here because you are touching a very important point. Uh, Now that you are talking about like, okay, my dad did that, and that created the stories in my head. If we start to understand how our brain works, how our conscious and subconscious mind works, when we are 7 and 8, maybe 9, a little bit on the tens, you just take everything as it is. You don't have a way to reason that that is wrong, that is good, that is bad. Like it's what it is. Period. And that's how we start to create our own version of who we are, because our parents are there to shape who we are, and the friends and the school and all of that. That is what is happening at that moment. But because we don't have a way to reason to say that is good or bad, when we get old, we are not reasoning if that is good or bad, because the subconscious doesn't have a way to say that is wrong or that was wrong. Oh, Joe, how he can do that and he didn't hear your story? What happened there? That is wrong. You don't have a way to say that is good or wrong. And why I'm saying that, because really maybe we have people in the audience right now that they have some stories that they don't know that they were wrong because happened when you had less than 7, 8 years old, and that shaped who you are. So with all the introduction that I gave, I want to ask you, and that's where I see the power of a coach to help you get out those stories and start to understand what are the stories or the narratives that you have from the past that you still believe today and you are still living today because you didn't have a way to say that is wrong
Yeah.
and that is not the story that I want. So before I change any old narrative, I need to be aware that they exist and they are there. So how is that process and how you have even realized that story that you told us now and how that affected your life? How was that process?
Yeah. Um, so for me, well, there's two things here, and I want to make sure I understand your question right. So, are you wanting to know how I got to the point from to recognize and rewrite those stories, or okay? So, because the cool thing is everybody's not going to have to go through this 4 year and 50, 60, $70,000 process that I went through. But basically, what happened is I was doing really well at work. Things were good at work, but I didn't want to stay. Or sorry, I didn't want to go home. I wanted to stay at work because once I got home, it was like as soon as I walked through the door, it was just this flood of uncertainty. I didn't know how to talk with my wife. I didn't know how to interact with my kids. I didn't know how to make these things right. And in my mind, I was still operating on these stories that I didn't realize there was any issue. Right.
Exactly.
And I thought I was supposed to come home and I just eat my dinner and I go sit in front of the TV and that's what I do. And I no concept that that wasn't healthy for my relationship. And it just built and it built and it built. The pressure at home, the pressure between my wife and I. And one night we were arguing about something stupid. I mean, I don't even remember exactly what my wife and I were arguing about, but I just exploded. I got so angry. I was just yelling and I turned and we had some cupboards in our upstairs hallway and with my bare foot I just started kicking in the cupboards. And this is an embarrassing story for me to have done that. And with and my wife, while I'm kicking in this cupboard, my wife is like, "That's it, I'm done." She walks by me, she heads downstairs, and I'm kicking in this cupboard door, this wooden cupboard door, and I destroyed it with my bare foot. And I stop, and a couple things happen when I stop. One, I hear my wife grabbing her stuff downstairs and grabbing the car keys. And the other thing that happened is as the adrenaline, the anger fades, the pain in my foot shoots up and I looked down and it was about the size of a chopstick or like a number two
Wow.
pencil and it was sticking in my foot. And I'm like, I'm trying to get it out and I'm irritated. I'm not going to ask for help. It's her fault that I kicked in the cupboard because she didn't understand. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just doing what I had been taught. And, and all of a sudden, like I realized I can't get this out of my foot by myself. And I look down, and from the top of the stairs, I can see the front door, and my wife's opening it. I know I have to do something. And the thought came, what do I want? And I think this is really one of the most powerful questions that anybody can ask. One of the things that's going to take you from, well, I had no idea that what was going on was good or bad. It just was.
Mm,
Okay. To, well, what do I want? Who do I want to be? And when I asked myself the question, what do I want? It was like time slowed and I could see this future with my wife. I could see us playing with our kids. I could see us traveling the world. I could see us sitting on the couch, just looking at each other, laughing and while we're holding hands and cuddling and just, I realized that's what I wanted. And then I knew that what I was doing was not going to get me what I wanted. So
mm,
whether it was right, whether it was wrong, whether it just was, all that mattered is the path I was on was not going to get me where I wanted to go. And I
mm,
had to do something. And so I muttered out, it was really pathetic, whatever. It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't anything. It was just help. Please help. Don't go. And my wife stood there and I'm watching her stand there. And Alejandro, I tell you, the when the heart stops and you just don't know what's going to happen, that's what this moment was. And I was sitting there at the top of the stairs. I'm bleeding out of my foot. I've got this thing poking out that I can't get out. And I'm just begging, please don't go. And my wife closes the door and comes back upstairs, helps me get the chopstick out of my foot. And she says, so what now? And that started a 3.5, almost 4-year journey of us doing anything and everything to figure out how could I heal our relationship? Who did I want to become? Because if what I was doing wasn't working, I had to find something new.
Mm.
And during that process, I had an epiphany when I was in this group session with these other men, and somebody was getting frustrated. He was a business owner. He's getting frustrated. And I say, hey, if this was your employees, or if you were doing this with business, would you do A, B, C, D, da, 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 da? And he goes, oh, well, that's easy. Here's what I would do. And this is why I would do it. I said, okay, now pretend it's your family. Ding, light bulb goes on. And now he knows what to do. And so from that, and here's, if nobody else hears anything but this, like, please hear this now. Here's how you can skip that whole process. You may not, where you are may just be where you are. And I don't want to call it good or bad, but the question is, what do you want?
Mm.
Not what you don't want. Oh, well, I don't want to have to pay taxes anymore, or I don't want to have to this or whatever it is. Like, it's not what you don't want. What do you want? And then when you decide that, then you can say, is the path I'm on going to get me what I want? And if the answer is yes, cool. That's awesome. Like, enjoy it and keep moving forward. If the answer is no, then you need to decide, what am I willing to do to get what I want? And it's a choice. My wife and I made a choice that night. And then we made a choice every single day. And we continue to make a choice every single day for the last 13 years of our marriage, and with 3 kids and doing all of that. But it starts with a question: what do you want?
Wow. And I know that you said like quickly, but I want to dig a little bit deeper on those 4 years that you were like understanding a little bit. Why? Because at the end, it's the story of everyone. If anybody here is asking, oh, that question is hitting me like here, like what do I want? So that question is very powerful. But what if I don't know what to answer?
Mhm.
What if I don't have a clue of what I really want? What if I am still in the process of understanding who I am and I don't know even what I want? So how was that process for you? I know that it's, and we can talk like from the two perspectives. One, what happened to you, and the other one, how you are helping to accelerate that too. So it's going to be two different approaches. It's not like you don't have to take 4 years to fix it. This is what Joe did, but right now you are accelerating that in 3 months. I don't know. Like for example, of course, depends on the level of awareness and all of that. But
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. So the funny thing is, Alejandro, is that when I started this, I didn't feel like I was allowed to want anything.
exactly,
Okay.
that's why I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. So this idea, all I knew was what I wanted, and what I wanted was one thing. And I think, and at the time in this, how I pictured it in my mind, it was, I wanted this future with my wife.
Mm,
Really, what I think it boiled down to was I wanted to be loved. But the problem was, I didn't feel like I deserved to be loved. Okay.
mm,
Because part of the story I've told so far is all the things that were obvious and on the surface. But I think sometimes as individuals, we we know all our mistakes. Okay. We know the things that we've done that we don't want anybody else to know about. Whether it's a variety of addictions, that are ongoing unhealthy choices, or whether it's really, unhealthy one-off choices, whatever it is, we know all those stories. And I knew all my stories from that day, every day in the past, even now, even today, there's still those mistakes that I would love to rewrite. There's still elements that I need to be aware of so that I don't regress into previous mistakes and challenges. But the biggest issue was that I didn't feel like I was allowed to want anything. And maybe from a religious perspective, going like, well, I should just be happy with everything God has given me. And
Mm.
I should, right? But I don't know anywhere in the Bible or any scripture or anything where God says, be happy with what you have and don't you dare ask for anything else. Right? In fact, the
Ask
Bible,
and you will be given.
yeah, ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be open. We're told to ask, we're told to want. And yet I don't deserve it because of these past mistakes. Jordan B. Peterson, in his book, what is it? It's 12 Rules for Life. I have it over on my shelf over there. 12 Rules for Life is really interesting because he goes back into Adam and Eve and talks about this whole idea of we make mistakes and then we feel like we need to hurry and hide, right? Quick hide, see that you're naked. And so they go and they make these fig leaves. And it's really, really cool. And if anyone wants to get into that, dive into that. I'm not going to go into that so much right now, but just to say that this basic idea was I felt like I had to get to a certain level of good enough before I was allowed to want anything. But here's the
Wow.
lie. Here's the lie. Wanting to get to that level is still feeling like I need to get to that level is still wanting something. So it doesn't matter what we do, we're still pursuing something, we're still wanting something. And so, what is it? I had to realize that what is it that I actually wanted? And the only thing I knew that I wanted at the time is that I wanted to stay married. That was
Mm.
it. Okay, well, what do I need to do to stay married? And then I dove into counseling and workshops, group programs, and anything and everything. And I was blessed enough, lucky enough that my wife was willing to do that too. And what I actually started in was an addiction recovery program because that was an element of my life that was I needed to heal and fix in order for anything else to work. And it was couples that would go to this. And my wife went, and there were a lot of other wives there. And they said, well, I don't even know why I have to sit through these classes. He's the one with the addiction. It's his problem. And my wife's
Mm.
response was, look, I don't know if this is going to work out with he and I or not. So I'm here for me. I'm here to get better. And so I was grateful for that. But going through these processes, you heal one story, you heal one pain point, and it opens up something new. So what started as the only thing I know that I want is I want to be married. So what am I? Okay, well, you know what? We're going to go check out this workshop that my friend recommended. And then in the workshop, I realize some things that I've been holding on to, and I let go of one of them. And now it was like open the door a little bit to, well, I don't want to just stay married. I want to be married and happy,
Mm.
right? And
And that
then
opens another door.
yeah, exactly. And so I think the problem is that we come into it and we say, "Oh, well, I'm not allowed to want anything, and I should be happy with what God's given me." You know what? Yes, be happy, be content, but don't be complacent. Don't be willing just to sit there, because there's always more that's available for us if we're willing to receive it.
Mm.
And so the first question, if what do I want? If the first question is what do I want, and somebody doesn't know, or they don't even know what they want, then you can ask yourself, if I was allowed to want anything, what's one thing I would pick?
Mm.
And then find that one thing. Okay.
Wow. And I love that because like also like helping people to go to different point of views, like what happens if Joe from 10 years from now comes and tells you what he wants and how he can get it. That creates another perspective and another way of doing it. But I love what you are saying, because at the end, if the belief is I am not worthy, you're not even asking you what do I want. No. And we believe that everybody is worthy, and that's what even the Bible says, like everyone is worthy. That's what Jesus was praying all the time. All the time he was teaching that, like everyone is worthy. Doesn't matter how many sins you have, you're worthy.
Yeah.
So in that process of, okay, I am a little bit worthy, and you have this second question, because what I hear, it's like I am in the process of getting a little bit worthy. Like, yeah, okay, I want to be happy too. It's like one little step further that
Yeah.
I love, but it's still like one little. If I ask you, just let's make a contrast right now. If I ask you right now, what do you want? How do you answer that question?
The first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that is, where's my vision that I've written down? Like, because it's hard to remember everything in there, especially like depending on how days go. Because if you've had a great day today, you could be asked, "What do you want?" And it's like, "Oh, this and sunshine and da 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 and forever and love and family." And but if you're in a bad place at the time, it's difficult to hold on to, which is why when you're asked, what do you want? You have to write it down. You have to get it on paper so that no matter where you are, you can return to that fundamental piece, that fundamental copy that you have written down on that paper to be able to review and move forward. So, you ask me that right now, what do I want? What I want is to save the world.
It's a little bit, a
Yeah.
little change from I want to stay married and happy.
Now, ask me if I feel like I'm capable of that.
Are you capable of that?
No. And and this is the irony of everything. You talk about feeling worthy, you talk about deserving, you talk about all of that. In and of myself, I am nothing. I'm just I'm the 10-year-old kid falling down the ladder because he shot his brother in the head with a Nerf gun. There's still pieces of those things that come up. I think I think something that hurts is somebody, an acquaintance of mine on Facebook, he had posted something where he was like reaching out to men and saying like, "Hey, you ever feel like you're overwhelmed? Like it's too difficult to how to juggle all these different pieces?" And I was like, "Yeah, that used to be a constant. And then I've learned these tools, and now I know what to do when it starts to flare up." And there were other people that went on there and they're like, "Nope, never." And I'm like, ah. Either you're lying to yourself or you're lying to everybody else, or you just, in what you talked about earlier, Alejandro, is that you're just at this point where you just don't know, right? And I think that sometimes what hurts is this idea that I have to match up to everybody else. Now, when I this is where words and how we define come into play, because I told you to ask me, am I capable of doing that? And my answer is like, well, no, but yes. It depends on how you define capable. By myself, no, not at all. With God and one family at a time, absolutely. Because I can't save the world, but what I can do is share the principles that I have learned that can help a husband save his marriage or a wife save her children by teaching them the power of believing in themselves, believe and knowing what they want, knowing who they need to be to become that, letting go of the things holding them back, and building a life that they choose in a way that they choose. Now, if I can do that for one family, and then that family passes that on to their kids and their kids pass it on to their kids, and then I can go do it for one other family and one more family and one more family. Well, all I have to do is help the individual. And then the individual changes their family and changes generations. And then before you know it, the entire world understands the principles needed to live connected, to live in joy, and to pursue what they want as who they are meant to be. And that saves the world.
And I am going to, like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to say. Yesterday I was hearing. Have you heard about Don Miguel Ruiz? He wrote the Four Agreements.
Oh, uh-huh.
So at the end, like, there is a lot of things, and everybody that is listening, I highly recommend to read that book. It's amazing. I recommend more the Fifth Agreement because have a better summary of the Four Agreements than the fifth one. But at the end, the Four Agreements, what he is talking about is we are doing our best from this place that we are right now. Always, you are doing the best from the place that you are right now. And one of the things that he's saying is, this is my world. The people that I can reach, the people that is around me, my family, my work, the people that it's around Mexico, the people that I'm reaching like you in other countries. Is my world. And when I am connecting with you with the four agreements, and I have it here, I am impeccable with my work. So I am using my words the best way I can. I don't take anything personally. Like, even the thing that you are telling me, if I get like, oh yeah, I feel unworthy. But like, I don't take it personally. It's not personal. Sure, I am not making assumptions. So I assume that now Joe is not the coach that I thought because he had those problems. It's all the assumptions that we create in our heads. And third, we are always doing. Fourth, we are doing always our best. When we are doing that, we are fully present, and when we are fully present, we are changing the world. And the other thing that came to my mind when you were talking about this, I talked to you when we had this conversation about this program last week, was these words that you gave me, that you were talking about, like, okay, think about what is the meaning of, and just in one word without thinking or thinking or anything, one word for sun, one word for money, one word for, and you started to give me like 10 different words, or, well, it was like 20. And sí, llévatelo dos. uh, and you have the all the words, and I answer some things like from my heart. But after that, we did a little meditation, 2 minutes of meditation, connecting with who I am, connecting with God, connecting like with my real purpose. And after that, we did the same list, and my answers were completely different because I am in a different space, and suddenly my world is different, and my world is different. My world and my world, both. So that's like, when I hear you saying, if I capable, for me, you are capable because you are doing it one person at a time, of course, and you are doing your best every time that you are in front of somebody. Uh, so that always is going to be changing the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it just comes like a lot of that comes back to perspective, how we define it. If my perspective is I'm looking at the wars that are going on, I'm looking at the potential wars that are right on the cusp of something bad happening, I'm looking at the political chaos that is in so many countries, especially here in the United States, like looking at all this different stuff. When I think of that, no, I'm not capable. But when I look at me and I look at you are the one person I see, and then whoever is listening to this, like when I think of the individual, together we can make change because we can connect, we can learn, we can discover, and then we can go and do. Because we can have these great conversations. I mean, you do these shows and they're powerful and they're moving and they touch people's lives and they make a difference. If we take what we hear and we go and we do.
And that's where the next question comes. Like, okay, I understand now my own narrative, and I have this work that you did in 4 years. How how you are helping them to go like have this understanding and this transformation quicker, and how that start to shape the change in my life.
Yeah. So what I came up with is I call it my 3D framework. Uh, and it's to help everybody live a three-dimensional life so that with the idea that wherever we're at, we are present. And so the first D is to discover. And this is all foundational. This is discover your vision. What is it that you want? Discover your values. Who do you need to become to achieve that vision? And discover your why. What's going to push you through whatever challenges you face, whatever difficulties you face, what's going to push you through that and get you to keep going. So, and that's really the summary. The thing that's interesting is that that's like the summary of 2 years worth of stuff. I mean, how many times do we hear you need a vision? What's your vision? What do you want for your future? Write out a vision. What's your vision for 2024? What's your vision for the 21st century? Like whatever. But how often do we actually write it down and do it? And sometimes I think what took so much time in this idea of from where I was at the start of this journey and taking nearly 4 years to do it was implementing the action items that were given. And it's easier said than done because of all the stuff that comes up. And so one of the things that I love doing and helping people is community. And so like there is a membership that I offer that people can become family builders. But the most important part of that is the community, is connecting with people and having that accountability to say, hey, let's do this, let's go. And I feel like I'm missing your question and I'm going off in the wrong track. And maybe that's not professional for me to say on a live show, but it doesn't matter because I want to make sure everybody's getting what they need. So help me best understand, was I going in the right track, or help me better understand what your question was?
No, it was how you can, now that you have like, okay, we work with your story, we started to work like, okay, this was my old narrative, and this was the process to understand that that old narrative existed, and it's there. So from that point, you were for years working on that and understanding, and you explained us a lot of the things that you needed to do in those 4 years to understand. Now that you are a coach helping people like you in the past really thrive in their families and start to understand how to do it better, how is that process quicker? What is the thing that you are doing? So you are talking about this 3D, that it's a very good point where they are starting to like, oh, that's the way I can get it. That's the way I can understand that this old narrative is not working anymore, and I have a new one that can create my change and shape my reality.
So I was kind of on the right track, I think.
Exactly.
So, all right, good. Just made sure I wasn't going crazy here. So, um, so really the reason it goes faster is because it's like, have you ever painted by numbers? When they say like, okay, so blue, paint everything that all the sections that are marked with a 1, that's blue, and all the sections marked with a 2, that's green. Like it's already there. You don't have to think about the shadowing and the lighting and when to switch colors or where to put this, or like you just take the brush and you fill it in, right? Whatever that number is. And I think that's the difference, is that it took me 4 years because I had a blank canvas. Okay. I had a blank canvas where I had to figure out, what am I going to do? How does this work? Can it work? And how many artists start putting paint on a canvas or, drawing something on a paper where you don't even have to be an artist? Like how many times has somebody started an essay or a school paper or something and start writing, or, a thesis, something for business, or a report for business, and you just crumple it and toss it in the trash, right? Like, so I didn't even know if this was going to work or how it was going to work. But now, because that process has been outlined, because I've already walked through that, I can go and say, hey, step here, step there. The best way for people to connect with that and to start getting some of these ideas and tips to where they can start implementing one at a time is going to be best place to start would be my YouTube channel, which is at the Joe Pomeroy. And people can pretty much find me anywhere at the Joe Pomeroy. But the idea is having a framework, being able to set up step by step so that you're not bouncing around between what it is that you want. Now, I don't know how to do it. And now I'm all by myself. No, nobody here is alone. There's always the opportunity. I mean, that's why everyone's here, is to connect with you. I mean, Alejandro, you as the host and the way that you bring people together is so powerful and so important. And so when you have someone like that, or when people are able to, they can check out my website, forwardwithjoe.com, but go and see there and figure out what exactly is this movement? What is this process? What is the 3D framework and how can I apply it? One of the most difficult parts of this journey is rewriting those old stories.
Mm.
And I just remembered something that I want to make sure and share, and I know we're getting close on time. One of the most powerful things that I've learned is that, so Alejandro, you talked about at younger ages, we don't know whether something's right or wrong. It just is. And so then later in life, we struggle judging right or wrong. It just is. One of the things I learned that happens as well is when something breaks emotionally inside of us and say, oh, I'm not worthy, or my dad loves my brother more than me, or it doesn't matter if I get hurt, and those things break. We stay at that age, which means if that first
Wow.
broke for me at 10 years old, then when I'm 30 years old trying to figure out love and marriage and make this work, I still have a 10-year-old's mentality on whether or not I deserve love
In that area, yeah.
in that area. Exactly. And so one of the most important processes that I help people through is to rewrite those stories, to go back to 10-year-old Joe and figure out, what did 10-year-old Joe need? He needed to know that yes, he made a mistake, but he's still loved,
Mm.
and he can learn from his mistakes, and he's just as important as anybody else as everybody else in the family. And now, and there's a process and there's a technique, and I talk about that in some of the YouTube videos, and people can go check that out. But there's a way to then rewrite that so that 10-year-old Joe is able to wake up, have that fixed, and now suddenly it goes to the next story, maybe 15-year-old Joe or 16-year-old Joe, where something happened and he can get his need met. And in a matter of weeks, my mentality in that area can grow up decades. And so it's
Yeah.
really, really powerful, but you can't do that on your own. It's so, well, you can do anything. We're amazing human beings. It's so difficult to do on your own. And so I love that, Alejandro, I love that you have this community here, and I love every one of you for tuning in. Thank you so much. It's so powerful. Keep doing that. And ways to connect with me at the Joe Pomeroy and pretty much any social, and get involved in that. We can do that together.
I really love that. And at the end, this is the reason you saw how we were working about your belief system. And again, if you don't work on those situations, at the end you have the belief system of a 10-year-old Joe, and at the end that's what is happening. And I had that situations like a lot of times that I have been working in myself. And it's stories about money, stories about family, stories about friends, stories about how to get along with each other. So all those stories that if something is not working, as you are saying, or maybe I like to use emotions, because at the end I believe that emotions are energy in motion. So in my case, I say like, okay, let's find what is the emotion. If the emotion is of sadness, it's not that it's wrong. It's okay to feel sad. It's completely normal, but it's telling you something. If you're activated about some things that we may say during the program today, maybe that's an alert to tell you like, okay, there is some work to do there. So Thank you, Joe. We are going to prepare another one because this was amazing. I really enjoyed the session today. Thank you, everyone that was here with us today. Just quickly, one last phrase. If they forget about everything, what is that phrase that you want them to remember before we leave?
Oh man, it's just the question: what do you want? If you were allowed to want anything, what's one thing that you would want, whether you think you deserve it or not? And start there.
Love that. Love that. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us. Believe in yourself, believe in your business, believe in your life, believe in your family. So that is going to transform everything. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out the SpanglishWorld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it. Thank you all. See you next week. Bye.